Hi, welcome to our September Coffee and Care video. If you are new to this series, this is Coffee and Care, where each month we'll go through little tips and tricks for caring and maintaining your home landscape to keep it looking its best. These tips and tricks are going to be released each month, and we'll have a handful of easy tasks to help keep your landscape in the best shape and looking the best it can. I'll try to keep these videos short and sweet, but if you have any questions, definitely feel free to reach out to me on my webpage, csapexlandscapedesign.com, or check out our Facebook page, csapexlandscape.com. And in case I forgot to introduce myself, my name is Chelsea. I am the owner of CS Apex Landscape Design, and I am a local landscape designer to the Colorado Springs, Colorado, and southeastern Colorado. Now, remember, you can also find these helpful tips and tricks on our blog on our webpage. So let's get started with the tips for September. But first, because this is Coffee and Care, make sure to grab that sweet elixir of life, your cup of coffee, take a sip, and remember, just 20 minutes outside can help improve your mental health, your physical health, and help your focus through the day. So if you haven't been outside yet, grab that cup of coffee or whatever drink you choose and go outside, sit and enjoy and breathe in that fresh air. Now for our tips and tricks. First, make sure that you call your sprinkler expert. This isn't specifically a September tip and trick. However, those sprinkler experts, their schedule fills up quick. And if you want them to be able to get to your landscape in October, call them today. Let's get started on the actual September tricks. First, I'm going to start with some things that you don't necessarily need to do every year. First, let's talk about aeration and overseeding. Typically, you would only need to aerate if you're noticing some thatching or some overburdening, in other words, some dense root systems that is choking out the air of the roots of your grass. Now, this can kind of be hard to see sometimes, but generally it'll be some browning, some thinning of the grass. Then you're going to want to go through, you're going to want to aerate, eventually overseed those areas, because just like us, plants not only need food, they also need air. So if they're lacking air in their root system, they're not going to thrive, they're not going to grow well. Now, typically, from what I've heard from the various turf experts, and I could be wrong, I am not a turf expert, is that you want to do this in the fall. This gives those new root systems from the existing grass time to flourish. It also gives any time you've overseeded, time to get those seeds established before the spring and before that heavy rainfall hits. Now, you can do it in the spring. I've just heard that you probably most likely want to do it in the fall. Now, also, every couple of years, usually every 3 to 5, we're going to talk about pruning or trimming your shrubs and trees. Now, why I put this on the September list is because sometimes you do need to do it every year. If you have a plant that just absolutely loves you, you might want to think about doing it every year or every other year. But typically, trees and shrubs are every 3 to 5 years. Now, I won't go into great detail because trimming and pruning can be a very tricky game, can be a very tricky process. I'll make sure to do a video kind of giving more specific tips and tricks on how to prune and trim. But I will say there's a reason why we have experts, there's a reason why we have arborists. Their specific job is to know trees, to know shrubs, to be able to take their expert advice and get those trees looking how they should, get them healthy, trim them without causing damage. So if ever in doubt with trees and shrubs, trees especially, call a arborist. And there is a difference between just a landscaper that trims trees and an arborist. So if you don't know, I'll talk about it in a later video, but trust me, for trimming trees, you want an arborist. Now, I will say this as well, for shrubs specifically, there are many shrubs, like lilacs and roses specifically, that will put their buds, their new blooms, on in the fall. You do not want to trim roses or lilacs, especially in the fall, because you will cut off all of their blooms for the next season and be very disappointed. There are some more shrubs on that list than just lilacs and roses. So I would advise talking to your local gardening expert, talking to your extension office, making sure you have that list so that you know what you should and should not trim in the fall. Generally, they are rare and far between. Lilacs is the most common in southern Colorado, but there are some others. Overall, though, you're pretty safe. If you don't know, go ahead and trim it, just trim it lightly. Now for those green grass lovers. And yes, I will give you an insight on a little joke in our family. I am a landscaper, I'm a landscape designer. I am ironically enough allergic to grass. So green grass lovers, good for you guys, you can keep it. However, one thing that you want to do in order to ensure you're going to have that nice green lawn, that nice green grass that will, of course, make me blow my nose and look all puffy, is that you want to winterize. What is winterizer? Winterizer is a type of fertilizer that specifically takes and encourages your plants from growing up into growing down. So instead of growing up and encouraging leaves and blooms, it's going to encourage that plant to put all of its nutrients, all of its energy into its root system. It needs that energy in its root system in order to get through the winter, in order to store those nutrients to survive our winters. Now, if all you have is that weed and feed from the spring, you can use that. Some fertilizer is better than no fertilizer, so I've been told. Now realize that the weed part of a weed and feed, that's a pre-emergent. That's going to stop. It's going to stop weeds from growing. In Colorado, at least, we don't have weeds in the fall. Predominantly, our weeds are spring and summer. It's a wasted product. The feed part, kind of like what I was explaining, that encourages that upward growth, those leaves and those blooms, and not as much root growth. There's still some in there, so if you don't have any other option, if you have extras from the spring and you didn't want to buy in a whole new bag, go ahead and put it down. It's still a fertilizer, but that winterizer is going to definitely do better. That being said, if you don't have a winterizer, you've used up all of your weed and feed, all your spring fertilizer, it's not the end of the world if you don't put this down. I have been told by numerous turf experts, pretty much every turf expert I've ever talked to has strongly encouraged winterizer, but has not said that you have to do it. It is just highly recommended. So if you can't do it, don't stress about it. If you want that beautiful green lawn first thing in the spring, maybe think about putting down a winterizer. Now, last but not least, fall planting. It sounds strange, but fall is actually a great time to plant our shrubs and our trees. Perennials, grasses, kind of. And here's why I say that. We still have roughly a month to a month and a half before our hard frost date. In Colorado, our hard frost date is October 15th. So if you're seeing this video at the beginning of September, you've got a month and a half. If you're seeing this at the end of September, perennials, grasses, you have about 2 weeks. It's getting a little tight. But shrubs and trees, however, by planting them in September, now, fingers crossed, we are through the heat of the summer, no more 100-degree days, no more 90-degree days. Now we can plant these trees and shrubs in an environment that they're going to enjoy, that they're going to be able to thrive off of the nutrients and the water that we're giving it. Versus if you're putting water down on a 100-degree day, it's going to evaporate. 80-degree day, a little bit, not as much. This is also giving those trees and those shrubs a head start for next season. Now you can still plant sod, you can still do overseeding in September, but again, as we get closer to that October 15th date, it gets a lot harder with those finer root system plants to make sure that they get that establishment period before our potential frost. Now, also something to take into consideration. And again, I highly recommend planting trees and shrubs in the fall. I think it's a great time. I've heard nothing but good things about it, except if you don't winter water. You have to winter water if you're going to plant in the fall. Now, why do I say that? In Southeast Colorado, where I'm located, reality, we may be a ski state. We still don't get enough snow to equate out to enough water for these plants. So we need to remember to winter water any new shrubs and trees throughout the winter. And in reality, winter watering means hand watering because, again, we're going to be turning off our sprinkler systems next month. So if you're going to plant in the fall, which, again, I highly recommend you do, just remember that in November, December, January, probably February, you're going to have to go out with some buckets of water. You're going to have to go out with a hose and you're going to have to water those plants to make sure that they make it until the spring. So those are our tips and tricks for September. Make sure you keep your eye on my webpage. Again, that's csapexlandscapedesign.com to check out all of our new blogs and our tips and tricks. And thank you for joining me this morning. Remember, enjoy that cup of coffee, enjoy that drink. Make sure you get your 20 minutes outside and share this video with your friends and family. And make sure you subscribe to get that notification for when our October video comes out. I hope you have a great day.